I talk about every single day the modern Republican Party, and I acknowledge and discuss how extreme it's become. And still, I'm smacked in the face by examples that still stun me, even though I know that to be the case. But still, I get stunned by examples on a daily basis. And this is one of them. Republican presidential candidate and governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, got asked about Enrique Tarrio, the former leader of the Proud Boys, the far-right pro-Trump militia, who was sentenced to 22 years in prison for his role in plotting the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, a plot to overthrow our government and install Trump the president. The most un-American thing imaginable, the most unconstitutional thing imaginable. And Ron DeSantis got asked about pardoning him. What? And says, I don't know, we'll think about it. And then talks about how it seems unfair what's going on. Again, a Republican presidential candidate, governor of a state, getting asked about a domestic terrorist and someone who engaged in a plot, again, to overthrow our government, attempted to keep someone the president who lost an election, engaged in and planned a coup. And still, Ron DeSantis says, something fishy is going on. I might have to take a look and maybe we'll pardon Enrique Tarrio.
Very quickly, Governor, I just have a couple of seconds. January 6th, some of the people that are going away now, they've 15, 18, and 22 years for Tarrio. As a president, would President Ron DeSantis commute or pardon those guys?
We will look at all those cases. I mean, so there's some examples of people that should not have been prosecuted. They just walked into the Capitol. If they were BLM, they would not have been prosecuted. Then there's other examples of people that probably did commit misconduct. They may have been violent. But to say it's an act of terrorism when it was basically a protest that devolved into a riot, to do excessive sentences, you can look at, okay, maybe they were guilty, but 22 years if other people that did other things got 6 months. So I think we need a single standard of justice. And so we'll use pardons and commutations as appropriate to ensure that everyone's treated equally. And as we know, a lot of people with the BLM riots, they didn't get prosecuted.
Everything's the BLM riots. My goodness. People were prosecuted, by the way.
Get prosecuted at all.
Okay. Can we go back to this part? Let's see. Before responding.
To do excessive sentences, you can look at, okay, maybe they were guilty, but 22 years if other people that did other things got 6 months.
Did you hear? He says one person got 22 years being Enrique Tarrio, but other people who did other things got just months. Ron, that's how the law works. That's how prosecutions work. Sometimes one person gets a different sentence than someone else who did a different thing. Yes, nailed it. Okay, so let's play this out. First, let me remind you of some New York Times reporting. Document in January 6th case shows plan to storm government buildings. A document found by federal prosecutors in the possession of a far-right leader contained, and that's Enrique Tarrio, a detailed plan to surveil and storm government buildings around the Capitol on January 6th last year. People familiar with the document said on Monday, and the document was titled 1776 Returns. Imagine if a Muslim person or a group of Muslim individuals who were terrorists attacked the Capitol, and then you found the plot to overthrow the government they had been putting together. And then you watched as they did the thing that they wanted to do, being overthrowing the government. Do you think Ron DeSantis would be saying, 22 years, a little excessive, we might have to think about pardoning? If the plan was to overthrow the government, seditious conspiracy, that's what we're talking about here. Again, if it was a Muslim person, you would be hearing something very different, because we heard something very different with other domestic terrorism from these same people. Or he brought up BLM. Okay. Imagine if BLM, you found their document that outlined their plan to do 1776 again. And then they did the thing that they're being accused of on camera. Or in the case of Enrique Tarrio, his minions did it because he was the leader of the organization. He wasn't actually attacking the Capitol himself. But you found their plan. It's there. And then you see what the plan is doing when it's played out. If it was BLM, Ron DeSantis would be 100 years old, still screaming about that. But when it's MAGA, he's considering pardons. They're not for law and order. They're not for any of that. It's only when it's politically advantageous. And I'm sick of it. And as I talked about in this past segment, it should be the only thing these Republicans are asked about. Nope, back to this, back to this, back to this. If you can't say you're for our Constitution being upheld and not supportive of individuals who were trying to shred our Constitution just to keep Trump the president, then I don't want to hear your stance on woke, Ron, or your stance on foreign policy or anything else. That's the only thing I want to hear about. If you can't commit to our Constitution, our democracy, then everything else you stand for is irrelevant. My goodness, what a moment. And this is one of the candidates who's supposed to be not as MAGA, but incredibly right-wing, obviously. But he's not as pro-Trump because he's running against him. So maybe he could call out stuff like this. No. This is the modern Republican Party. It's disturbing. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. And there's a link in the description.